standing for truth in ways that also may not be popular or may cause even kind of social repercussions, as the truth often does, is harder and harder these days, where the culture shifts further left and morality is left in its wake somewhere in the distant past. And that is true, of course, on the subject of Ukraine, because Ukraine has become a sort of litmus test for your fidelity to not only woke principles, but also your fidelity to humanity, your care for and concern for the unfortunate among us. And of course, this unfortunate group of people are raking in billions of dollars from the United States. And of course, what's going on in the Ukraine is evil. There's nobody who would contest anything about that specifically. However, whether or not we should be forking billions of dollars over to a country that has proven time and time again to actually be relatively corrupt is certainly another question. So I guess this also has to do not only with social repercussions and taking a stand that may be unpopular, but also to the ability to be able to think two things at the same time. Because we can think that Russia is evil and we can think that what Russia is doing in the Ukraine is bad, while also understanding that perhaps what we're doing to help may not actually be the best solution, especially for Americans. Because as we'll see in this viral clip that took place just over the weekend, you'll see that we have been giving billions of dollars to the Ukraine, and we do not actually know where that money is going largely. And here is one example for why that's such a big deal.
Thank you. And I thank Alex Rubinstein and Wyatt Reed for helping me prepare this address. Wyatt Reed is a journalistic colleague of mine who in October 2022 happened to be in Donetsk when his hotel was shelled by the Ukrainian military with a apparently U.S.-made howitzer, nearly killing him. He was 100 meters away. I'm also here with my friend, the civil rights activist Randy Credico, who was more recently in Donetsk and witnessed regular HIMARS attacks on civilian targets. I am here not only as a journalist who spent over 20 years writing books, producing documentaries, and writing articles about conflict and politics from several continents. I'm also here as an American taxpayer who's been dragooned into funding a proxy war that has become a threat to the regional and international stability at the expense of my countrymen and women. Just June 28th, as emergency crews worked to clean up yet another toxic train derailment in the United States, this time on the Montana River, further exposing our nation's chronically underfunded infrastructure and its threats to our health, the Pentagon announced plans to send an additional $500 million worth of military aid to Ukraine. The development came as Ukraine's army enters the third week of a vaunted counteroffensive that CNN describes as, quote, not meeting expectations, and which even Volodymyr Zelensky says is going slower than desired. As Ukraine's military failed to breach Russia's primary defense line, CNN reported on June 12th that Kiev had lost, quote, lost 16 U.S.-made armored vehicles sent to the country. So what did the Pentagon do? It simply passed that bill down to average U.S. taxpayers like myself, charging us another $325 million to replace Ukraine's squandered military stock. There was zero effort to consult the U.S. public's position on the matter, and the vast majority of Americans likely did not even know the exchange took place. This policy that I'm describing to you, which sees Washington prioritize unrestrained funding for a proxy war with a nuclear power in a foreign land while our domestic infrastructure falls apart before our eyes, exposes a disturbing dynamic at the heart of the Ukraine conflict, an international Ponzi scheme that enables Western elites to seize hard-earned wealth from the hands of average U.S. citizens and funnel it into the coffers of a foreign government that even Transparency International ranks as consistently one of the most corrupt in Europe.
Now, I don't know if it will help you at all, not that it should, that the person speaking there is a Democratic journalist and not necessarily some right-wing fanatic, but actually somebody that typically would side with those and in his political ideological spectrum on the Ukraine. And he brings up a valid point. Infrastructure is struggling in the United States while we fork over billions of dollars to the Ukraine, and we do not know where it is going. But infrastructure is just one of the many problems in the United States that demands our attention while we focus all of our benevolence upon a country that people can't even find on a map. Now, I want to also underscore the importance of the missing tanks here, where millions of dollars in missing military equipment just goes unchecked and we don't know where it is or what happened to it, if it wound up in the enemy's hands. But we just know that we should try to recompense the Ukraine for missing this stuff and just give them even more millions of dollars of equipment. I want to remind you of something I showed on the show a while back, but it's something that if you are not aware of, you should be aware of. And that is that the Department of Defense is the only governmental entity that does not have to pass a financial audit each year. So here is Jon Stewart speaking to a DoD official and questioning why in the world that's the case.
That is not the same as saying we can't do that because waste, fraud, and abuse has occurred.
So in my world,
Yeah.
that's waste.
How is that waste?
If I give you $1 billion and you can't tell me what happened to it, that to me is wasteful. That means you
Well,
are
we didn't
not
necessarily-
responsible. But if you can't tell me where it went, then what am I supposed to think? And when there has been reporting, I mean, this is not, look, I'm not saying this is on you and that you caused this, but I think it's a tough argument to
I'm pretty
make
sure I
that
didn't cause it.
an $850 billion budget to an organization that can't pass an audit and tell you where that money went, like, I think most people would consider that somewhere in the realm of waste, fraud, or abuse, because they would wonder why that money isn't well accounted for.
So let's just for a moment push aside any emotional attachment we have to the Ukraine, and let's just ask the very simple question that I hope we can find unanimous agreement with, which is we should not be giving money to people who are not managing that money well, or who are not managing that money in a way that we can actually report on or that we can see. So if there's not going to be any kind of financial audit or any kind of financial accountability for the money that's going to the Ukraine, I'm not sure why we should be giving it in the first place. And this brings up a whole nother big issue. Should we be giving money to a country that has potentially illegal ties to our sitting president, while there are allegations of him taking millions of dollars from businesses in the Ukraine, and even things that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt, which is that Joe Biden was doing quid pro quos, according to the less definition of it, in the Ukraine by forcing certain attorneys who were investigating things to be fired, or else they would not receive any kind of benefit from the United States when he was vice president. I mean, push all of that aside for a moment, and let's just focus on the obvious fact that not only should we not be giving money to the Ukraine when our president potentially has illegal ties with them, and this could be all just a big cover-up and we're being extorted, and President Biden is giving that money to Zelensky, so whatever dirt he has on Biden won't be exposed. And let's just be honest outside of any of those higher kind of conspiratorial ideas, and let's just focus on the simple fact that the people who misuse and abuse money do not deserve to get it. Now, I know this comes as a surprise to Democrats who think that you can, charge everything on credit and run up the national debt and there will never be repercussions. But certainly there is. And if there is a national security threat in the present, it's not just Russia. And it's not even just Russia and China. It's the fact that our national debt continues to skyrocket, creating what is the biggest national security threat that we presently have. So fiscal responsibility might be something that may not be sexy, but is absolutely necessary. But of course, in our laissez-faire kind of no holds barred, pleasure-seeking society, responsibility and finances are two things that often don't go together.
So you just got done watching a small excerpt of a much larger episode. You can find the link to that full episode down below in the description of this video. So you definitely want to check that out, because if you like that clip, you'll like the much larger episode. And while you're at it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and click that little bell to be notified when great new episodes of Indie Thinker come your way. Thanks for watching.